Stay tuned for Butler on Business, coming up next on the Liberty Express.
Your dollar will be worth just as much tomorrow as it is today. The effect of this action, in other words, will be to stabilize the dollar.
Andrew Gause, AndyGause.com. Now, that's GAUSE.com. He's a man after my own heart. Andy, how you doing, buddy?
Great, man. I love to hear that. That was a beautiful, beautiful quote.
Hey, I've even got the sound bite when FDR made us all felons if we owned gold.
Yes, yeah.
All
we're
right,
going to take it all and we're going to put it in a glass fort. You know, they were originally going to make Fort Knox glass.
So we could see it?
Yeah, so you could drive your Model T around the thing, you know, and take a look and make sure that it was still there.
Yeah, but old Goldfinger got a hold of it, radiated that gold.
Well, no, a great deal of it was moved into the basement of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York.
Yeah, we gave them our gold.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read, you know, you've got that Roosevelt speech, the actual executive order doesn't order you to turn the gold over to the government. That's the thing that people might miss. It says specifically in the order that you must turn your gold in to a Federal Reserve Bank. It's like forced you to sell it to them in exchange for their Federal Reserve notes. So that's how they got a hold of it.
Determined to crush the double-digit inflation that was part of the Carter administration's economic legacy, President Reagan, this is coming from John Williams out there at Shadow Stats, President Reagan, shortly after his inauguration, established a commission to consider the feasibility of returning back to the gold standard. But for the most part, it was made up of the very bankers who are responsible for destroying our currency, helping the government in that effort. So, obviously, you know, they don't want to be tied to a gold standard.
You're so right about that. But, you know, Ronald did convince them and convince the rest of the world that we needed something in the way of gold. So the very first $10 gold piece since 1933 was struck under Ronald Reagan. And the Mint has been striking these gold coins ever since then. In fact, they even did a silver $50 in 1982, the George Washington $50, 50-cent piece. That'll still buy you 2 gallons of gas, okay? And that's really the reality of sound money. So it was a bit of a sop in the Reagan days. We got something out of it, though. I mean, you can buy gold coins from the Mint today. If you don't like Federal Reserve notes, you can sure cash them in. So that's a good thing. Now, if we get something like an audit of the nation's gold reserves, or at least a look at the feasibility of having more gold in the Treasury than we currently have, I think it'll be a good thing for the economy all around.
I would agree with you, but I also say it is impossible given the current fiscal situation.
Here's how right you are. If you took all of the gold that we have in our reserves and put them in a pile and then divided it against all the Federal Reserve notes, you'd come up with a price of gold that sounds like $57,000 an ounce. And that, my friends, we couldn't get from here to there, as they say in New York City, without a panic, a full-blown financial panic.
Not only that, but the true deficit right now under GAAP is $5 trillion a year.
Right.
The most austere plan out there calls for adding $140 trillion additional dollars to the debt between now and 2040, when if it could be believed, if we maintain, I mean, first of all, 4% interest rates.
Not happening.
No, that unemployment rate. I mean, he's even starting with an unemployment rate that's 25% of the real rate.
Right.
So, I mean, when I saw that, first of all, I almost wanted to regurgitate, because it was so, how dumb do they think we are?
Well, dumb enough to get where we are. I mean, think about, you mentioned Ronald Reagan. He appointed a Greenspan, the Greenspan Commission, that looked at the Social Security problem in 1986 and said, oh, by the time 2010 comes, you guys are going to be spending more than you take in. It's going to be horrible. We have to raise taxes. And they raised them, if you recall, the biggest tax increase in history. And over that period, the Social Security Trust Fund accumulated $3 trillion in surpluses. $3 trillion. And what did Congress do? They promptly borrowed it and spent it.
Right. So when they came out with this platform saying that they were going to study the possibility of forming a commission to maybe look at returning to the gold standard in one breath, and in the other breath have a plan that calls for adding over $100 trillion more to the national debt without saying it. You have to be able to read the numbers to know that that's where they're going. You could see why I'm just like, I just can't go there with them anymore. I'm sorry, been there, done that, don't believe you. I saw who you were last August with that debt ceiling debate.
Well, you are, again, man after my own heart, because the young generation might be buying into this because they didn't see what happened in 86. And certainly those that weren't around from 77 to 80 can't appreciate what an inflation looks like. Not a hyperinflation, folks. Not one that busts out your currency, but one that drives you crazy at the supermarket. Man, prices were rising back then 15 to 16% per year, an annual inflation rate that was high in the double digits and was just devastating the pocketbooks of America. And in a span of 3 short years, they managed to double the money supply and then quickly choke us all to death with massively high interest rates so that the real inflation rate wouldn't be felt. That's what we're heading for again. And it's starting like now, running for the next 3 to 5 years. Very, very high inflation as they create new money to solve all of these fiscal problems rather than buckle down with a gold standard or some sort of fiscal restraint.
So we're both in agreement that given the current fiscal situation of the United States, we cannot return feasibly to a gold standard.
Right. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. In fact, you said throwing a bone to the Ron Paul people. Yeah. They're trying to get those on board that believe that the gold standard should be reinstituted and that monetary policy should be run from the Treasury, not from the Federal Reserve. Unfortunately, it's just a window dressing. I don't believe there's anything coming out of this.
I don't either. So I viewed it as I would rather have not had seen it in there. And it's coupled in there with the line that they recognize the importance of the Federal Reserve acting as the lender of last resort.
Right.
So,
why can't the Treasury do that? We have a printing press. We print the money, and then we sell it to the Federal Reserve for 3 cents for a $100 bill.
And then pay them interest on it for giving them such a good deal.
And borrowing it back, yeah. We sell it to them at 3 cents for a $100 bill, and then we borrow it back for $100 and interest. Yeah, great deal. Of course we need them in place. How else are individuals going to make hundreds of millions and billions of dollars from the sweat of America's taxpayers?
I miss, honestly, the days when I was ignorant of all of this, and I would have sat there and swallowed that rhetoric, hook, line, and sinker, but I took the red pill. I know what's going on.
Yep.
Andy, we're running out of time, buddy.
Sorry about that. I think intergenerationally, they did catch the younger guys who weren't around before. You know what? I have 3 audio CDs on this. I have one, the Federal Reserve. It's a half-hour audio CD on only the Federal Reserve. The other, the definition of money, talks about what is money. And the third is protecting your wealth. If you're a listener, you can get all these 3 free. Just mention you heard it on Butler and Business, and give us a call, 800-468-2646.
Or go to Andy Gause, Gause.com. Andy, it's a pleasure. Look forward to the next time.
Thank you, my friend.